it's time for the Wrestle Plug review of WWE Raw, the Go Home Raw to Wrestlemania. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Aeron and joining me to discuss Raw is Kyle Wilkinson.
It doesn't really feel like a go-home show, does it? Just with the whole pandemic going on, it's just kind of...
We all have gone home. Like, WWE's like, go-home show. Paul Heyman's like, this is a go-home show. It's like, we're already home, mate. Fuck you.
Yeah, come on, Paulie. Don't do us like that.
Yeah, man. You and your pro-corona nonsense. The only pro-corona I've ever been is down the pub. Am I right, man?
I mean, Corona's all right. It has to be ice cold, though, because warm Corona can just taste like fucking warm piss. I don't want no part of that.
Piss. It's the way you emphasize piss. I really enjoyed that. That was very American of you. Piss. Yeah, no,
wow.
Yeah, no, Corona's fine. But it's sorry. Being Canadian, Carl will of course find that highly offensive. And yes, British people, there is a difference. Particularly as one of them belong to our Commonwealth. Do your fucking research. Yeah, no, coronavirus is carrying on as it will until further notice. How are you coping over there, mate? Still in full lockdown?
Yeah, pretty much. Applying for there's a Canadian emergency benefit for anyone that's not working because of Corona, be it laid off or just, at any reason whatsoever. So I've applied for that and hopefully I'll see. Apparently they're giving $2,000 a month for 4 months. So that'll definitely help with the bills and all that kind of stuff that would eventually start to pile up. So hats off to Trudeau, I guess, for that one, even though he's not very popular. But, what politician really is.
There you go. If you're listening in Canada, that's actually some really important advice we've just given there, as opposed to us normally just swearing like crazy and annoying people and offending Wrestlemania, who doesn't like cursing, apparently, although she's such a sweetheart. And now she's popping her tits off because she's got another shout out on YouTube. Congratulations. And if you want a shout out at WrestlePlug, just send us something nice on Twitter. Shout out to @Tarlierson as well, because he seems to be a lovely chap. Although no shout outs to Jay Miller for not turning up for work. Lazy beggar.
Son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch! WWE Raw, mate. Opening up with a fantastic promo from the dead man himself, The Undertaker. He addressed AJ Styles in the build-up to their Boneyard match at WrestleMania this weekend. And I don't know if you've heard, Kyle, but WrestleMania is too big for one day.
What?
It's the new dentist, isn't it? It's the new Britt Baker. This is the new thing. Have you heard? WrestleMania is too big for one day. It's like, oh, fuck off. I like the way they're saying the only WrestleMania that's too big for one day, because they know that they're not getting away with this shit once everybody gets back to normal. But ultimately, Undertaker cuts one of the best promos he's probably done in recent memory, at least in the last 3 or 4 years. And one of the biggest reasons for me why that is because he was not acting like a fucking annoying old zombie. Although, spoiler alert, the one thing I didn't like is that boring fucking trope of, oh yeah, you waited until right at the end of your career and then rode in on your coattails and indies and you couldn't cut it here before and seriously, everybody says that, and it's fucking tedious. And I know it carries more clout because The Undertaker said it, but, I'm not going to sit here and pretend just because it was a great promo that it didn't have faults, and that just because he's a legend, which of course he is, that he's not susceptible to making mistakes or going down the same route with these tropes. Trope, shall I say. It fucking annoys me when wrestlers, I saw John Cena do this with Daniel Bryan, a lot of guys levied this at CM Punk, I remember Triple H did this, this mentality of, I've been here since the beginning, I've always been a part of the big time. Yeah, good for you, mate. Money was offered to you at a time when, they desperately needed stars. But ultimately, the reason that guys like AJ Styles are considered the greatest wrestlers in the world is because they didn't just sit in one fucking house their entire life and claiming to be the entire world around it. For you to see the world, you must travel the world. And that's what AJ Styles has done. I know it's just a promo and everything, but it irks me a little bit. But nonetheless, great promo. And one thing that I'm really pleased about is that he seems to be merging himself back into American Badass, which I'm very happy about, because spoiler alert and unpopular opinion, American Badass is tenfold better than the Dead Man Undertaker gimmick. Except for when he was the Master of the Ministry. I will concede that was fucking awesome.
I mean, I need him to come down on that chopper. I love the American Badass. Chopper, get to the chopper. Because he was doing that around 2002, 2003 for the most part, or was that Big Evil? Is there a difference, really?
That's Big Evil. Well, there's not really that much of a difference for me. I mean, he still had the motorbike for that entire run, but 2000 Judgment Day is when he debuted, and 2003 Survivor Series is when he laid that gimmick to rest when he was buried alive by Vince McMahon and Kane, and then he returned at WrestleMania 2004. So, yeah.
Yeah, WrestleMania 20.
The encyclopedia strikes. Where it all begins again. WrestleMania 30. Where it all begins again.
Where it all ends, ends. But, no, that's when, how old was I? I would have been about 12 or 13 by then. The Badass Undertaker was just the coolest character in the entire world. So I'm really excited for this. You done it now. Are we all excited for that theme song? Because I really need that to come back to.
Yeah, they I mean, even the social media said that, didn't it? It said, "You've done it now, AJ Styles. You've got to made a big mistake." And I thought, oh, I don't know whether that's just trolling on WWE's behalf. Probably, because if you really want something that much, WWE won't give it to you. Not until you're literally dying on your ass, begging. Like when you are quite literally scarce of all resources, WWE will then throw you the bone. It's as simple as that. But yeah, I thought it was a great promo. And to be honest, this Raw was all about the promos. There was some wrestling spliced in there, but nobody really cares about that. Edge and Randy Orton, man. Gone on record as saying I think this should be the main event of WrestleMania. Doesn't matter either day. Somebody messaged me and said it should either be the main event of Saturday or the second to last match of Sunday. But if you put it on second to last, it will cripple the credibility of the main event. I'm assuming the main event on Sunday will be Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar. We'll get to that in a moment. But Edge and Orton is by far and away the rivalry for this WrestleMania. There is one match where you always look at it. If you look back at all the WrestleManias in history, there is one match where you think, this is the match I want to see more than any other. And it's not always because it's just the two best wrestlers. Most of the time, it's down to the fact that this match has the master of all builds. Think about all the great WrestleManias. The first WrestleMania, for instance, nobody even remembers anything but the main event, do they? Nobody cares about that undercard. Everybody remembers Mr. T and Hulk Hogan versus Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, and of course the legendary Rowdy Roddy Piper, the greatest heel of all time. Don't at me. And that goes on, of course. WrestleMania 3, it was Hulk Hogan and Andre. WrestleMania 6, Hogan and Warrior. WrestleMania 17, Austin Rock. WrestleMania 17 was the most stacked WrestleMania of all time, and yeah, we all zone in on that match because of the build. And this is absolutely no different. These two men have sacrificed a lot and have built a lot to make this match feel really special, and I feel like they should be rewarded with the main event because they've done more than anybody else, and that's really amusing when one of them is 40 and the other is 46. Or Randy Orton is on the precipice of 40, I believe. His birthday is 1980. And his April the 1st is his birthday, which is in a couple of days. So happy days. Congratulations, Randy Orton. Happy birthday, like you're ever going to fucking listen to this. But yeah, when you think that both of these guys are not necessarily in the twilight of their careers, because we've seen that wrestlers go a lot further nowadays. Chris Jericho is a good example of that. Minoru Suzuki. But I'm absolutely running out of superlatives to describe just how special these two are and how well they've done. And Randy Orton takes a lot of knocking over the years for being Mr. Boring, Mr. Smooth. He's very good. He doesn't really do anything special. But when it comes to knuckling down and being uber heel and cracking on with a meaty shit art storyline, there are no better than Randy Orton. And the proof is in the pudding right here. And Edge, the promo he cut backstage tonight, wherever he might be, probably was pre-recorded from when he was here a week ago. Doesn't matter to me. Ultimately, the quality and the professionalism of these two has shone through, and the promos have been exceptional. And they also gave us a little teaser of the WrestleMania vignette. And for me, and I've said to you already, and I want to go out on record as saying this, I believe this vignette to arguably be top 3, maybe top 2 of all time of WrestleMania vignettes. I think it's right up there with HBK versus Undertaker, and of course Austin Rock from WrestleMania 17. But all in all, mate, this rivalry, and as a Canadian, I imagine you're creaming your pants over how great Edge has been since his return. And he's only wrestled once.
Yeah, when he came out at the Rumble, I think he was like number 26 or 25 or something. Maybe he was in the
number 1 in our
remember.
hearts.
Oh, number 1 in my heart forever. I popped my tits off because I was convinced that he wasn't going to do it. I'm like, he's not 100%. And unless he's 110%, I don't want him taking the risk. I don't want him to get hurt. But when Metalingus hit and You Think You Know Me came on, I was watching it at my buddy's house, and he's got 4 young kids, and I might have woken at least 2 of them up because I screamed. I fucking just started screaming when I start just singing his theme. He's hitting that spear when he's looking out at the fucking stadium and he's trying not to cry. I was trying not to cry. It was just brilliant. And the promos him and Orton have been cutting, face to face or, week on, week off. Let's not forget Edge did drive like 14 or 15 hours down to the Performance Center just to get one of those promos out. And the professionalism with these two is just phenomenal. The match is, like you say, it should be the main event. I don't care what night. Honestly, I'd rather have night 2 because, it's a Sunday. That's the traditional day. I think they should main event night 2 because nothing is going to be better. I'm already upset there won't be a crowd for it, but it's totally understandable considering the circumstances. I'm not going to be that salty and pissed off about it. But the work they're putting in, the promos are just top. You forget how good Orton can be when he's like this conniving, slimy little fucker of a heel. And Edge can still have that fire as a babyface. And they bounce off each other so goddamn well. And it's going to tear the house down. Whoever has to follow that match, I'm sorry. I pity you because these two are going to go hell for leather. They're going to beat the holy shit out of each other. There's going to be a concerto. I can't see how there wouldn't be, which, by the way, is weird because, that's technically a chair shot to the head. And I thought those were outlawed. But we've seen them multiple times on TV since the Royal Rumble. And that's fine because they're great. I'm so excited for this match. I almost forgot WrestleMania was in a week because I've been inside my house for 2 straight weeks and I'm losing track of days. But it's always good to know that the one WrestleMania that's too big for just one night is going to be next weekend. So get fucking hyped and not for the Gronk because I want to kill myself every time I see that.
Yeah, there's going to be an absolute multitude of content coming at you lucky devils rapidly this weekend in the form of about 3 audio podcasts, about 75 YouTube videos. It's just going to be mad. And I'm so glad that Manic Mondays finally met its conclusion today because there's just no room for it right now. WrestleMania is going to be stacked. And it's quite funny when COVID-19 struck and the world basically went into lockdown. The thought was, wow, we're going to have a hard time trying to find content. Luckily for you devils, I am the hardest working man in all of wrestling podcasting, and you can fucking fight me for that moniker because there is absolutely nobody out there who's put the level of work in that I have in the last few weeks, and man, am I thrilled. And just to let you guys know as well, for anyone who maybe isn't involved or hasn't really heard about it before, hashtag WrestlePlug is in full effect for this weekend. There will be 2 Podcast in the Bank briefcases / just not briefcases because I'm not buying you a briefcase. Go fuck yourself. Go and nick your dad's business suitcase and just spray paint my Podcast in the Bank or WrestlePlug on the side of it. That'll do. But ultimately there will be 2 prizes on offer. Basically, WrestlePlug PvP is our little format. It's our little competition. We do it every single pay-per-view for every major pay-per-view, whether that be AEW, WWE and beyond. And of course WrestleMania is the big daddy of them all. And because it's 2 days, that means we're going to have 2 competitions competition. So, if you are listening, if you are interested in taking part, make sure you send a DM to @WrestlePlug wherever you may find us on social media, and let us know your predictions, basically, for all of WrestleMania. Not entirely sure what the current card is, but I will be dropping some videos on YouTube and Twitter and everything else once I have more of a confirmation, because they haven't exactly been forthcoming with which days will host what. So basically, if they're not, just send in all the predictions for every match that's available on WrestleMania. We'll provide links to all the matches so you can send them in, but ultimately, if you want to get in there quick and get in there early, you're more than welcome to send them in as soon as you hear this. So WrestlePlug PvP, you want to win the opportunity to be on this podcast, which is basically what that is with Podcasting and Bank. Just send us in your predictions, and if you get the most right, you will win a Podcasting and Bank, which will be valid for 1 calendar year. Good times ahead.
Two-time winner right here. Just want to throw that out there. I made my triumphant return. I believe it was at the Royal Rumble.
Yes, you did, and it's also worth pointing out. No, it was at NXT Takeover the night before, if I remember rightly.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so you covered NXT Takeover. Carl Wilkinson hadn't been on the podcast for the better part of a year, and one podcast. He won the. You won the NXT one, didn't you? You won the WrestlePlug PvP for NXT Takeover.
I did, because we covered it the next night.
Yeah, clean sweep. And we covered it the next night. He immediately cashed in his podcast in the bank, which was great fun. So, yeah, and here he is as a more regular, contributor to the WrestlePlug. So, can't really complain in that format, and ultimately always done a good job all the times he's been on. So, hey, if you want the opportunity to be the next Carl Wilkinson, get involved. And also, it's very interesting to point out that the first ever man to win 2 Money in the Banks, Canadian. First ever man to win 2 podcasts in the bank, Canadian. You Canadians take everything, god damn it. Ultimately should be a good laugh. So get your predictions in, but that's enough for now. Back to Raw. So, Edge has dropped a killer promo, of course. We've already mentioned Undertaker's killer promo. Kevin Owens dropped a sneaky little promo in the middle of the show that people may not have noticed on Seth Rollins, talking about how it was quite a weird promo. It was an excellent promo, beautifully delivered. I mean, Kevin Owens, for me, is the most underrated mic worker the modern generation has ever seen. I really believe that. And he has come out time after time and sold a match to us. And I've got to be honest, right? I don't care about Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens, because I've seen about 50 iterations of it in the last 3 months. And yet he somehow still was able to make me feel like I wanted to see this match based off of his voice. Like, that is how you know that somebody is a master at the promo. And he sat there after his match, after Seth Rollins cheap shotted him, after they got the win in that pretty decent 6-man tag. And also, by the way, RIP Montez Ford's spine, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Oh my God.
Actually, fuck it. We'll talk about it now. So during that match,
we have
Ford takes a tope con hilo over the top rope, which is basically a forward flip. And I think the idea was that Austin Theory and Angel Garza were meant to catch him. But from what I could tell, neither man was interested in doing so. But this was a poor spot, right? So this is simply my opinion. So I don't know factually, but I've watched it over and over, and we dropped a amusing video and stuff, and I've been told he's absolutely fine. So, that's why we dropped it. I wouldn't just do it in poor taste if he was actually injured. But yeah, this con hilo is one of the most ill-advised maneuvers I've seen in recent memory. You're in front of nobody. And now I get it. It's WrestleMania on the weekend, and you want to show off, and you're putting on, your tag titles on the line, and this is their first WrestleMania match and everything, so they want to hype it as much as possible. Could you not have done this at WrestleMania? Like, why? On the go-home show to Raw, you do a con hilo, and he's up in the air, and he takes a flat back bump on the ramp and the outside. It's a nasty landing. It really is. Like, this is why you are trained to bump, for this exact reason. This is why they drill the fuck out of us when it comes to bumps, because holy shit, dude. But But it's just, I personally think it was so ill-advised, and people are saying that this is Austin Theory's fault, who, by the way, made his Raw debut. Congratulations, mate. And people saying, oh, he fucking botched. First of all, it's not a botch if you don't catch the guy. Okay? Like, you need to, like, really think, like, I'm sorry, but it's not. A botch means that you have made a mistake during a maneuver. That's not a maneuver. That's simply him not being in the right position. At worst, for Austin Theory, it's a case of he was not in the correct position to catch him. Second of all, you know, the communication of this spot looked to be very off. You know, it's all very well him just assuming that they're going to be there, but do you know what? I'm sorry, but when I see spots like this, I don't think, oh, Austin Theory should have fucking caught him. Someone should have got under him. I think, why the fuck are you doing this spot on a throwaway Raw episode in front of nobody? Okay? There's no need to take these risks at the best of times. I'd be pissed off if he had taken this risk in front of 80,000 people on Raw. Never mind in front of nobody. It was utterly unnecessary. And, you know, I don't get me wrong. Obviously, I feel for Montez Ford. It was a horrible landing. But at the same time, he made the decision to do that. And everyone's acting as if he's some sort of victim because he wasn't caught. Well, ultimately, he made the decision to take that dive. And, yeah, don't get me wrong. I love it. I love the risks these guys will take, and I have in nothing but admiration for what they do as athletes and performers. That being said, I didn't need to see it. I didn't have to see it, and I should not have seen it. It's as simple as that. It was a risk that was taken that was absolutely not necessary.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, we've seen some pretty gnarly flat back bumps. One that springs to mind for me, it's not quite flat back, but I believe it was either Oney Lorcan or Danny Burch when they were facing the Undisputed Era.
Ooh,
and he did
Christ.
he got pushed off the turnbuckle and did like a middle of the back spine bump right on the apron.
Ugh.
That was fucking gnarly.
Coffin drop as well. In AEW,
every week.
Cody versus Darby Allin. Every week, but the one where he took it on the hardest part of the ring. It was just, I mean, it was genuinely one of the most terrifying things I think I've ever seen. It was my holy shit moment of last year. It was insane, that spot. Don't get me wrong, I love that match. And ultimately, Darby Allin is fine, so can't really complain, I suppose. But it's just ill-advised. It's just ill-advised, that's all. And I just think it just didn't need to be done.
No, I like, when you hear the impact of Montez Ford's spine, I don't know if he hits the metal at the end of the ramp or what, but it almost sounds like a gunshot. Not like a Walter chopping gunshot, but like a gunshot. And you don't need to do that in front of 100,000 people, let alone 2 commentators and camera crew. I'm sorry, that's not necessary. Like you said, it's their first bid. If they want to show how great and athletic they are, yeah, that's great. That's fine. But there are plenty of other ways to do it that don't involve, you know, risking your ability to walk 10, 15 years down the line.
Yeah, I mean, my final point is it was a 6-man tag. If you absolutely needed to do that spot, is there not a way you could have communicated to the guys beforehand, hey, could all 5 of you get around to one side and then do it? And then that would have absolutely been the safest environment to do it in. I'm not saying that he shouldn't take risks and things like that, and ultimately, just his 5-star frog splash is a thing of beauty. And I really think Montez Ford has a ridiculously bright future, providing he can convince Vince McMahon that he's not actually as black as he seems, because ultimately Vince McMahon doesn't like pushing black people. Just putting that out there. But yeah, the match, obviously, being out of the way, Kevin Owens cuts his promo and he talks about Seth Rollins and how, do you know what, the difference between me and you isn't necessarily that we're both great people. It's the fact that I own who I am as a person, and I own the fact that I will, you know, take nefarious ways and do nefarious things to get where I need to be. And that was kind of his, you know, his moment in the sun. And although I'm not really bothered still about watching their match, I will give it the time of day simply on the basis that he has gone out of his way to build it. Seth Rollins has been okay. I don't think he's been anything particularly special in this rivalry. I think his gimmick is a watered down B-Tech version of CM Punk's straight edge savior character. I think it's been done far too many times. We get characters like this, these Jesus-like characters. I can save you, and you need to be something really special. I actually much prefer Damien Sandow's take on it as the intellectual savior of the masses. I thought that was much better. I'll save you by basically chastising you for being fat, disgusting idiots, and that works beautifully for me because there was the comedic element to it. But I just think this, I loved it because it was almost a shoot promo, because he said that Seth Rollins and who Seth Rollins is disingenuous. And that's kind of how a lot of people feel about him in real life, fans-wise. I'm sure he's a lovely bloke, I really am, but, people see him as very disingenuous. They saw that in Twitter stuff involving Will Ospreay, etc. And I think ultimately people have a bad taste in their mouth about Seth Rollins, which is why he was turned heel the way he was. And Kevin Owens kind of whistleblowed that a little bit in this promo, and I thought it was worth a mention on this podcast because I'm sure a lot of people probably let that one go over their heads, but I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that promo. I thought it was excellent and a lovely little appetizer for the main event promo of the evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my love for Kevin Owens is well known. I think anyone who listens to this show, be it YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from, it's
such a mark for the Canadians.
It is that, but let's not forget that AJ Styles is still probably my favorite wrestler going right now. But I relate to him so much just in the way that, he's not the traditional looking superstar. He's not 6'8", 350 and jacked. Okay? He's just, it's not that he looks like an everyday family man, but that's kind of the character he plays. Like when you see him on Twitter, like all he talks about is how much he loves being at home with his family and how much he misses them when he's gone and stuff. And I think that's just great. And then when he gets in the ring, he'll kick you in the gut, drop you with a stunner, and then have a good time and go home. And the match with Rollins, you're right, I don't care, but because it's KO, I'll go into it with an open mind, and if it's great, awesome. If not, well, I didn't have any expectations for it anyway, so at least I won't be disappointed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Kevin Owens' appeal lies in the fact that he's relatable. He looks like one of us. Obviously not nearly as bad as me, but he looks like a human being. He looks like a normal guy, and like you say, the family life, having the smoking hot wife, having the wonderful kids at home, being a wildlife enthusiast like he is. A little callback to his indie days. He's just always been quite real and quite in your face. He feels like a bit of a man's man in a lot of ways, and I think that really relates to the audience, and that's why wherever they went and whatever he did, whether it be very lackluster or not, people would still always react to him far better than they would most people on the roster, because when you're watching a product that has so many of these larger than life physical specimens, it's actually quite refreshing to see somebody who is real and relates to you. But somebody who certainly doesn't relate in any sense is Brock Lesnar. Lesnar didn't say a frickin' word, and he didn't have to. The main event of this show, this Go Home show, was Paul Heyman basically explaining to you what a Go Home show is. But in his own distinct fashion. I think we take Paul Heyman for granted at this point. We do. We just assume he's going to be gold, and because he's always gold, we actually don't hype him as much. I think we really have. He's got that Tom Brady appeal where not many people like him because they're so used to him being great, so they just kind of either look for nitpicking things to have a go at, or just kind of, like I say, take him for granted, don't really pay attention and think, oh, okay, whatever, it's Paul Heyman, he's good, and then we'll just move on to the next thing. And ultimately, because everybody hates Brock Lesnar because they're all worked up because, they work themselves into a shoot, brother. Ultimately, I feel like his brilliance goes by the wayside a bit. This promo was phenomenal. He absolutely destroyed it, as always. And I love the fact that he said, yeah, next year, we're going to be in the same position. And it is a spoiler, Brock Lesnar will be here again. And I love the fact that he kind of had that emotional moment where he said, you know what, I love this business. And I love the fact that we can, keep kayfabe. He said, I don't like breaking the fourth wall. I like how his new catchphrase is bitch as well. Seems to be very, very big fan of that. I believe he swore as well. I think he said fucking or something. Therefore proving my point to Wrestlemania that swearing is just a part of life. Deal with it. Deal with the curse words, madam. But yeah, I love this promo. Thought it was phenomenal, and I liked the fact that it was just a punctuation for the end of Raw. There was no brawl. There was no, P6 struggle over the title belt like there has been in the past. It certainly wasn't a horrendous fucking build that Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar had, where they just didn't see each other, and then the Raw before WrestleMania they started tugging at the belt, arguing
a little
over
game
it
of
like
tug of war.
children. Yeah, do you remember that? Like, it was like a couple of children arguing over their Legos. Like, it's like fucking Cartman. Yeah, it was. It was like Cartman just being like, get off my pot pie. It was hilarious. But I thought this was brilliant. I thought this was a great punctuation. And ultimately, as much as I am a wrestling fan, first and foremost, I think I've always felt like I'm more into the wrestling than I am the grandeur. I do like the characters, and that when promos are executed properly by great superstars, there is nothing better. And this Raw was punctuated by Paul Heyman doing just that. And this Raw was a fantastic build to what is hopefully going to be a decent watch. It's going to be a weird watch, and I think it's going to be quite difficult for people to get their heads around the idea of an empty arena, particularly when you consider it's over 2 days. But I think this Raw, from a entertainment standpoint, not a wrestling standpoint, was bloody good. And, I'm not one of these people who picks a side, I prefer AEW, I prefer this, I prefer that. I don't give a shit. If it's good content and it's good wrestling, then I'm in. It's simple as that. And I thought Raw was excellent for that reason, because it promoted WrestleMania really well. And if we'd had 5 or 6 of these Raws, probably be even more excited than I already am. The only criticism I would have of this Raw, or should I say Raw in general, is that there has been a very lackluster hype for the women's matches other than Becky and Shayna, who once again delivered, by the way. I should also briefly mention the fact that, there was a Becky Lynch promo as well, which we'll talk about in a second. But Brock Lesnar, what did you think of that promo? Did you enjoy it as much as I did?
I mean, I'll be honest, I kind of expected, when it zoomed in on Brock's face, and the credits were in the bottom left, I kind of expected a bit of a, NXT thing, all of a sudden Drew comes out and kicked him in the face. But honestly, I was pleasantly surprised when it didn't happen. You don't get very many clean endings to Raw or any sort of wrestling show like that anymore. It was just Heyman and Lesnar in the ring saying what they need to say, and Lesnar looking like a big, sweaty, scary gorilla. Well, I mean, what more can you ask for? It's great when Paul Heyman doesn't have to scream, because he just has one of those voices where when he speaks, you want to listen. And in an arena full of, 14, 15,000 people, that can get rather difficult. If I had to give an upside to the empty arena shows, especially the ones in the Performance Center, it's just been the people, when they do promos, they don't have to yell over the crowd. Sure, you have a microphone, but it's still one person trying to speak over, 10,000. So they can just use their regular voice. They can, the one Edge did, not last week, but I think the week before, when he was just kind of looking right in the camera and he was just speaking very quietly. That was still fantastic. But like you say, Heyman, great as always. Lesnar just looking like the big menacing NCAA champion and UFC, blah, blah, blah. We all know the guy's accolades. I'm still honestly not really that intrigued in the match, only because I would love to see the crowd reaction to Drew getting his moment, because I do think, spoiler, I do think Drew is going to win. I think that's what the story is leading up to. And I would love to see it in front of a WrestleMania crowd. I'd love to hear the pop on the Raw after Mania, which is going to be so weird with no crowd there, because that's one of the reasons it's so well known. But again, WrestleMania is, the granddaddy of them all. It's the culmination of the WWE calendar, so I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to do my best to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. There are wrestlers that have been my favorite wrestlers for a long time. I've made no secret of the fact that I love Drew McIntyre, and I think this moment has been a long time coming. The same with Shayna Baszler. Pretty much since the get-go, I've thought of her as the best women's heel in modern history in terms of wrestling. And for me, I feel like they're still making a mistake by running WrestleMania. I really do. But that being said, it's going to happen whether we like it or not. So we may as well take it in and try and enjoy it, like you say. One little side note to finish off with, Shayna Baszler choked out Becky Lynch and then smashed her head into the announce table a couple of times. She even picked her up and did the old swinging kind of power bomb position where you just violently destroy them. And yeah, I really enjoyed that segment because, yeah, spoiler alert, I don't think Becky Lynch is nearly as good on the mic as you lot do. I just think she is a really watered down, leprechaun sounding B-Tech Stone Cold Steve Austin. And for me, when Shayna Baszler just appeared out of nowhere and got her in the Kirifuda clutch, I popped my tits off. I thought that was the highlight of Raw for me, actually. I thought it was fucking incredible. And then her just decimating her. And I love this attitude that Becky stands and, the super sports entertainment apologists have on social media. Oh, Shayna Baszler's boring. Oh, she can't cut a promo. Not everybody needs to cut a promo. Not everybody needs to cut a promo. They don't. I know, don't get me wrong, right? The majority of great wrestlers and great superstars with great legacies need to be good on the microphone too. Shayna Baszler doesn't. Same with Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar doesn't need to speak. And even then, he's got Paul Heyman at his side, so it doesn't matter. But Shayna Baszler doesn't need to talk because she can literally bite a chunk out of you and murder you. And I think a lot of this stems from jealousy. I know this is going to really trigger people, but ultimately, I think the reason people don't like Shayna Baszler is because they're jealous or they feel insecure because they wish they had the kind of power and the kind of life-changing effects that she does. She has the ability to change the genre. She has an ability to completely change the way we view women's wrestling. Ronda Rousey, to her credit, when she came in, and people give her a lot of shit, but she came in, she made a lot of money, first and foremost, for the company, and for herself as well. But one thing she did is she tried to be a sports entertainer, which I admired, because she didn't have to be. She was still a tough bitch, she was still, the baddest bitch on the planet and everything, but ultimately, Ronda Rousey tried to be a character and an entertainer. Shayna Baszler, not interested in doing that. Shayna Baszler, more interested in the catch wrestling science of what professional wrestling can be. She is very much a technician. She's very much an artist in that kind of regard, as opposed to being a sports entertainment style artist. She is a legitimate killer. And for me, Shayna Baszler, even, I would say, on the level playing field that Drew McIntyre has, I would argue that Shayna Baszler deserves that kind of vicious reaction from the crowd just as much. On the flip side of things, we're talking about how Drew McIntyre really deserves and needs that huge pop and that audible response. I think the acknowledgement of being this super heel and the crowd just shitting on the fact that, Becky Lynch should be destroyed and tapped out about 5 minutes of WrestleMania, I think Shayna Baszler deserves that too. And it's another glaring example of how I believe that WrestleMania shouldn't have gone ahead. They should have waited. But like we say, it's going to happen anyway, so we may as well enjoy it. And I am, for one, hoping that Shayna Baszler murders Becky Lynch, because I think it's time. And frankly, I'm fucking bored of the man.
Yeah, buddy, that makes two of us. From what I've heard, I don't claim to be any sort of wrestling journalist or anything, but I hear that Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch will be taking time off after Mania to do what or go where. I don't know, because they're not allowed to go anywhere, but, whatever. That being said, I can't wait to watch Shayna completely destroy her. When Becky won last year, because let's remember, it's been almost a full calendar year since Becky Lynch won both the Raw and the SmackDown Women's Championships, which doesn't bother me. At the time, that was fucking huge. They main evented, Charlotte came down on a helicopter, it was a whole thing. It was great.
Replay was on Raw this week. They actually replayed the main event on Raw, yeah.
And that was great. She had her time. It's been a year. She's beaten everyone there is to beat. Now's the time for Shayna to come in, choke her out, and run roughshod over that division forever, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not upset at the concept of a forever title reign, and she only gives it up when she retires. Not against that, honestly.
Yeah, I've just lost a lot of passion for this run. I loved Becky Lynch more than anyone, and when people attack me on social media and say, "Oh, you're just a fucking hater" and all that, actually, if you bother to take the time to listen to our original podcast, I used to fawn over the woman like crazy and how woefully underutilized she was. I just think that she's now been overutilized, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. That's just how it is. Ultimately, there's nothing wrong with somebody reaching the pinnacle, but once they do, they need to be presented in a way where they could possibly live in jeopardy. And all she has become is the John Cena of the women's division, where you literally have lost all faith in her losing. And if she is going to lose, it will be on a monstrous marquee and nowhere else. And that's fine, but you're presenting this as, for all intents and purposes, a real sort of combat, right? You're presenting professional wrestling, especially in WWE. You're saying that, hey, this is a real environment, or this is a real, these people are in real conflicts, at least via our TV fictional presentation. So when you say to the audience on a regular basis, oh, well, Becky Lynch is just so indestructible and so good that, nobody can threaten her until now, then why am I supposed to care for the entire calendar year? That's the biggest problem I think wrestling has faced in the last 5 or 10 years for me. And the reason why it's seen such a massive decline is they have taken away that unpredictability and that jeopardy. And a lot of that came from the fact that there was always 4 or 5 viable contenders on the roster that could at any point kick your ass and take your title. And I'm looking at it right now, and the only other person other than Shayna Baszler who realistically should get even close to Becky Lynch, is Charlotte Flair or Asuka. And of course, they're wrapped up in different things. Well, you're sitting there and you're thinking, no, I just don't care. And that's been the case with a lot of people. I never hated Roman Reigns, and I never hated Roman Reigns getting a push. What I hated was Roman Reigns getting a push over everyone. That's the problem, is when you present these guys and you say, oh, they only lose once a year. Well, what's the point then? What's the point of me tuning in every week? You're asking me to tune in and watch a TV show every week, which you're presenting as reality, and you're asking me to suspend my disbelief and, kind of just generally enjoy the storylines and things like that. Like, for instance, this is the equivalent of, I don't know, what's your favourite TV series, Carl Wilkinson?
It would be like me watching The Flash, for example, and knowing that, someone's going to die, like, before the episode starts. It's just like having a constant spoiler, especially when Roman was at the top, just being constantly, pushed, taking 17,408 F5s to lose. That wasn't... I'm with you. I've never hated Roman. For a while I wasn't different, but that's only because he was presented as this monstrous guy who could do anything and everything. And I'm like, well, it's not fun to watch.
No, there is no fun, and there's no plausibility in somebody who can kick out of 5 or 6 finishes. There's so many little things and they all equate to one thing. But ultimately, when people talk about spoilers, the biggest spoiler that WWE has ever had is its predictability. That is what ultimately spoils your concept and your show, is the hilarious predictability of it. And the one thing that AEW has going for it, because it doesn't have this huge backlog, and the reason why so many people love AEW, I think, is not necessarily because it's a better product, because it's not all the time. But one thing it always has is unpredictability. I couldn't tell you from one week to the next who will win, and I kind of like that. And wins and losses also matter. As much as I'm furious that Pac doesn't get as much of a push, I had no idea, really who was going to win most of his matches. Like when he first came in, when he first wrestled Kenny Omega, I had no idea. I was surprised when he beat Kenny Omega. I was like, oh, okay. I thought Kenny was going to be the guy, because you just don't know, because they don't have this hysterical booking history of making it unpredictable. So it is what it is. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with WrestleMania. I mean, right now I'm looking at this Mania. I think there's only one winner, Shayna Baszler. I think there's only one winner in the men's match, the main event, or what they're plugging as the main event, which of course will be, Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar, at least in my mind. And I think I can't see anyone other than Drew McIntyre winning. I'm looking down the card and I'm thinking, I think one of the reasons why I feel like Edge and Randy Orton is so special is because there is that big potential for Randy Orton to win. Because Edge doesn't really need to win to look special. And I think it sends a hell of a message if he batters the shit out of it. Maybe somebody who is going to feud with Edge going forward interrupts in that match or costs him the match. You don't know. There's a lot of potential for that match. And also they're actually going to make use of that empty arena, which is great fun. Probably going to bust out some Rock and Mankind style spots, which would be great fun. But yeah, it is what it is. WrestleMania 36 is this weekend. It's going to be good. I have no doubt about that. The question is, how good is it going to be? But as far as Raw goes, and what we're reviewing, this is as good as it gets, I think, for an empty arena Raw in terms of presentation and promotion of a show. So I have no problem with it. I thought there were 4 excellent promos. And ultimately, we're going to delve into the preview for WrestleMania a little bit more anyway. So you've got pretty much a preview here, but we're going to release a exclusive YouTube preview for WrestleMania as well over the next couple of days. So there's some more content for you guys to enjoy. Carl Wilkinson, thank you for joining me to discuss Raw, mate. Any final points you'd like to make before we wrap it up?
Well, I think most of us are in agreement that we didn't want WrestleMania to happen. We've said it 2 or 3 times in the show alone, but it's going to, whether you like it or not. So take that time to actually just sit down and enjoy it. We could all use some sort of escape from the bullshit of the world that's going on right now. So just sit down, find a mate, find a buddy, just enjoy the show, because that's what they're here to do for us. And as much as we might not want it to go on, we still owe them a big thanks for trying to keep us entertained during these tumultuous times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll leave it there. We will be back very soon for more content across the Wrestle Plug universe, the plethora of social media platforms that we have. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, every single day at Wrestle Plug on Instagram and Twitter at the moment, we're constantly dropping fantastic throwbacks and on this days, running through the backlog of history that is pro wrestling, and of course regular content, regular podcasts. We're dropping some very special interviews as well this week. We'll be covering WrestleMania this weekend, and you guys who are listening out there, wherever you are in the world, you can be a part of this too. You can send us in your thoughts, you can send us in your opinions, and we will make sure that we let you be heard via the podcast. We will make sure that all of your opinions and your content finds its way onto this podcast, because we pride ourselves on the interaction. We pride ourselves on letting people have their say. It's been good fun so far in that regard, and I for one have just enjoyed having the opportunity to provide a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of an escape for people during such a difficult time. So as always, I'd like to punctuate what I've said on other content and let people know that if they're looking for an escape, if they're looking for an opportunity to chat to somebody in difficult times, maybe they need to self-isolate, maybe they don't have people or friends that are close by that they can speak to, you have a friend in the Wrestle Plug. You're more than welcome to speak to the Wrestle Plug at any time. That extends to everybody involved in the Wrestle Plug. But until then, gang, take it easy. Look after yourselves at Wrestle Plug everywhere you can find us. Like, subscribe, of course. Hit the bell, because you are going to be getting a lot of notifications over the next few days. I can assure you of that. But until then, I've been Aeron X. He's been Carl Wilkinson, and we'll chat to you very soon for more nonsense from the Wrestle Plug.